you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name is Joey, and this week I'm joined by Neil.
Hello.
And by Dominic.
Hello.
And returning for his second appearance this season and we were arguing before we started, I think prior to this season, no appearance in 4 years, little Eddie Wilson.
Hello.
Yes. Back once again, yeah. We have gone for 4 people on this week's pod because there's so much to talk about from the Morecambe game. I barely dare ask if people can conjure up their moments of the week for fear of how long they might take to go through. But Neil, why don't you start us off?
Right. Moments of the week. Right. First of all, we made the playoffs. This is a good thing, everybody. Let's not forget. But moment of the week actually came, I think it was in the 85th minute of that match, when I don't think anybody had a clue whether to be happy or angry or annoyed or frustrated. And then at one point, like, we passed the ball backwards, and I just saw a group of people in front of me turn around to the whole stand and start berating their own fans. Just because there was such a mixture of people, like, not sure whether to be annoyed by the fact that this nonsense was going on, and then you had these people say, this is what they should be doing, this is good on, guys, and then it's just an absolute, it became a farce, didn't it? But my moment of the week was just this group of guys who just got absolutely angry, and I thought, well, hang on, we're 5 minutes away from reaching the playoffs for the first time ever, and we're finishing this game where most people were pretty pissed off, including me. It was surreal, really odd ending to a match like that.
We regularly on here, we implore people to go to big games, and that we, all kind of let the past be the past, and everybody get up and support the team and everything. And then on a day like Saturday, when there are more people there, albeit not loads of people, I look around and think, I didn't mean you.
Yeah, you're all new, aren't you?
I just think, they're all on the concourse and it's loud, and then they're booing. Dom, what did you tweet? Your tweet summed it up perfectly. You tweeted something to the thing of, we're about to finish higher than we've finished in like 40 years. We're going into the playoffs and people are still booing sideways passes.
Yeah, that's a more eloquent way of how I hammered out the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, it was
in the middle of the match.
It was really quite something. Ed, your moment of the week.
There's a fairly elastic definition of moment of the week, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. It can be literally anything you can think of.
Okay, so can my moment of the week come from June 1982?
Yes, of course it can.
Yes, okay, elastic. Yeah. That's snapped, hasn't it?
So, for reasons that I suppose we might come on to later, I was doing a bit of research on match fixing in football.
Can I just say, I'm so pleased that you're back just for the way that you say research. Nobody says it like that. But I think every single episode you've been on, you've said research at least once. It's my favourite part of your being.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's always particularly sort of disappointing, isn't it, is the gap between the level of thoroughness and diligence that research implies, and then what is followed by. So get ready. So I was doing a bit of reading up on that, and I came across this Wikipedia article on a match that I'd heard about sort of vaguely, but I didn't know a lot about. And you might have heard of it, but it's called the Disgrace of Ricóh, right? And it was this World Cup match, this 1982 World Cup match between West Germany and Austria, and West Germany and Austria could both knock out Algeria from the group stage if West Germany got a 1-0 or 2-0 win. And there's a bit of the Wikipedia article that made me laugh more than any other Wikipedia article that I've ever read, which is a low bar because I'm normally on there looking up illnesses that I think I've got. But this was the bit that made me really laugh, and I just wanted to share it with you. So the performance was widely deplored by all observers. German ARD commentator Eberhard Staniek at one point refused to comment on the game any longer. El Comercio, the local newspaper, printed the match report in its crime section.
Yeah, okay, that is top class. When you said about the elastic definition of moment of the week, that is really, really, really stretching it.
Is that pushing it?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what Paul comes up with in response next week. Metaphysical concepts. Yeah. And Dom, moment of the week.
Yeah, because Saturday's game was so flat on the occasion that we made the playoffs, it sort of hasn't felt quite real. And it was only today when I got home and I saw the tickets to come through for the playoffs that it suddenly became real. We're in the playoffs now. It's the thing we've been chasing for years and years. We've been thinking, what would it be like for Coventry to feel like in the playoffs? This is what it feels like. And it's more normal than I expected it to be.
You're right. It really is normal, isn't it? I don't feel any different. If anything, I feel worse. And I don't know why.
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? I don't feel the same, partly because I think the semi-final is 2 legs, but I don't feel a great sense of anticipation about Saturday because I guess it's not resolved, is it, on Saturday? It's it's all very, very strange. I'm going for moment of the week is Dominic Hyam's pass completion rate. I'm just going to leave that one there. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very, very difficult to try and break down the game on Saturday. Neil, do you want to try and do something? Does anybody want to try and do something?
I can, because it's kind of difficult, and at the same time it's not. So we've been slagged off, like, broadly in the football world from people just looking at it from afar and saying, oh, look, this happened. And obviously Cov are mega cheats. But it's not that difficult to see what happened. So we all knew going into the match that a draw would do it. They knew it, we knew it, everyone did. So it kind of felt like as it got to a certain point within the game, things might slow down a little bit. We predicted it. And that's pretty much what happened. So I don't think there was anything in that first half which suggested that we weren't trying to win. I don't think we played very well. I thought we were... Chris Stokes came out afterwards saying that they didn't think that they were nervous or edgy or anxious or anything, but I actually did think they were. I thought there was lots of bobbly touches and sort of poor decisions and sort of jolty play. And it was not through the lack of like trying to create something, but I just don't think they were actually very good on Saturdays. So that first half was very, very sort of sporadic, and there were a couple of chances. I think when we actually did kind of conjure something up, it ended up being a really good save which stopped Clark Harris from scoring. And I didn't really have any concerns in the first half. I felt like it was a genuine game of football. We weren't playing very well, but they weren't really into doing much either. But there was still an intent there from us to score a goal. And then as it got into the second half, and this happened quite quickly, Morecambe stopped trying to participate in an attacking sense, really. And I think we've, in a weird sort of way, we've kind of been there ourselves while we're playing on the playground. You know how shit it is when you've been playing five-a-side for an hour, and then after about an hour, certain people just stop trying. Yeah. And it's no fun. It's not the same, is it, when nobody's engaging you, and it kind of felt like that. So we got to about an hour mark. We had this kind of illusion of attempting to attack, but they weren't really trying. They didn't really look much of a threat aside from maybe one counter attack, and I just think it grew into something which the players just couldn't be asked to put in a load of effort when the opposition weren't putting in much of an effort. And so we did try for a bit, and then ended up most players on the pitch weren't trying, although if the opportunity arose, I think they probably would have tried to put the ball in the net. So it was just a mix of everything, really. It wasn't like we set out to get a 0-0 from the very start. It's just it very quickly became apparent that both teams were more than happy to go for the 0-0 rather than potentially risk anything or exert themselves in something which kind of wasn't worth it.
The thing that really characterised it for me was probably by about 70 minutes, their clearances out of defence. One, their attacking players didn't look like they'd ever been intended for them. Like, what's it like? They were just like, that's fine, I'm just there. It goes over my head, I don't attempt it. But it almost looked like they were deliberately aiming for our centre-backs as opposed to... Or that they were like sort of deliberately kicking it into touch rather than anything else. Because they were a bit like, listen, let's just let's just get on with this, shall we? And
Exactly.
play it out in the most somber, staid fashion possible. It was just weird watching it, wasn't it? Though.
And it's go on, carry on.
Well,
No,
this I think is really interesting. So when Neil's saying like there's a lot of angry people saying that Cov are mega cheats. I've seen anger that's come from two main groups, right? The first is Sunderland fans.
Yes.
really?
Yeah. They were righteously indignant, and still are. And fair enough. Over the last few years, Sunderland's moral position in the game has been unimpeachable. And then the second group that seemed to be really pissed off about it is Cov fans. And I saw quite a lot of people and heard quite a lot of people who were really furious about it. And what I sort of felt was not that necessarily people thought the players were cheats, but they felt that they as fans had been cheated.
Yeah, like they'd come out on a nice hot day. They'd put the effort into leaving their house. Why couldn't we have won 8-0?
Yeah, and also, but also it's something bigger than that, which is that we have gone through such a shit and flat period for such a long time that I think people might have been forgiven for thinking, right, like this is the moment where it finally delivers some of the big emotions, some of the big feelings that I expect to get from engagement with sport in some way. Like whether that's like a sense of belonging, whether that's a sense of triumph, or whether that's a sense of like profound sort of disappointment. This is it. Like this is the moment where it delivers on that because there's something resting on this. And then when that just sort of deflated and there was nothing, that's when I think people felt themselves getting worked up and they start talking about things like cheating. But I think it's not that they think the players are cheats, it's that they feel that they have been kind of swindled of something that they expected and that they thought was going to be a big thing.
It was definitely surreal. I think, like you say, all these years, this big thing about not finishing in the top six, another thing about not ever making the playoffs, fit to happen in that way. And this, I mean, it was just so flat. There was like nothing to grab onto. There was no sort of moment where you kind of thought, right, we're in the playoffs now. It was just kind of this worry. And even as it got to the end, you just sort of think, something weird's going to happen here, isn't it? And it might just throw us off. And it just got to the end of the match and you had these people kind of faux running onto the pitch, feigning this absolute elation. And I can't really see that. I don't think you can kind of conjure up that amount of elation based on that performance. It just it doesn't build up to anything because you're kind of waiting on a side for like 10 minutes for this non-event to finish, and then suddenly I don't think there's a switch in your head which flips and suddenly you're like, right, I am now euphoric, off I go. It didn't feel quite genuine to me, but it was just very surreal. I thought I don't blame people for trying to be happy, and I also don't blame people for feeling a little bit oddly annoyed and maybe not being able to put the finger on it, because obviously this was a big deal for us regardless of league. Let's forget context for a moment. Us finishing top six, kind of getting the kind of bare minimum that we needed this year, it's big, and it means that we've got something to kind of an opportunity to fight for something at the end of the year. But in that fashion, that was just true Cov, wasn't it? I mean, if it was going to be shit, it was just going to have to be like that.
You know those pre-mixed bags of salad?
Yeah.
Yes.
And like they're fine, aren't they? They're fine, but they're never that good. Invading the pitch after that game would be like opening one of those pre-mixed bags of salad and then like running around your kitchen with your arm up in the air, charging and shouting with elation. It was weirdly incongruous.
What's the fascination with the pitch? Is it like an anti-authority thing? Is it because someone's told you not to do it that people have just gone and done it?
I think because they can, isn't it? Yeah, it's that sort of. The thing is, it's gone too far now. It's not. we're on the pitch so often, it's lost all meaning.
Well,
it's just on the pitch all the time now.
We're on the pitch so often that earlier in the season, that guy came on. He was on there for about 10 minutes, wasn't he?
Wandering around. Took a wrong turn.
Full chat with Doyle, before anybody even tried to kick him off. I don't get it. It seems it doesn't make any sense to me. Like you say, it was an inappropriate time for that outpouring of joy because fuck all has happened. And as well, after that game, like the whole thing of it, and it made me laugh when you said feigning happiness. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that that's a natural. People weren't overwhelmed with emotion, were they? It's just
there's no way you could be.
I just think
I've got no issue with like natural. I want people to be absolutely happy, and we are happy, and everybody's happy to be in the playoffs. And actually, I was saying before the pod, that thing where people ran onto the pitch during the Notts County goal, as naff as it kind of seemed, I get that raw emotion of scoring a goal, that elation of an equaliser. If things happen, you just burst out of your body and you want to do something sort of raw. I don't buy it at all on Saturday because there's no kind of trigger. There was nothing. I mean, you can't be waiting for that final whistle, and because we all knew that was coming, maybe 10 minutes beforehand. Yeah. It was there. It was nothing. There was no actual sort of spark.
And if they are doing it because they're genuinely elated, you can only feel sad for what must have happened in the rest of their lives. If that's such a great moment for them.
The other thing is that presumably there is some sort of payoff at some point. Now, if I use a reference point, I would say that I had a friend who was on the pitch at the 2012 Man City title winning thing, and both sets of players were still on the pitch, and he said that what was really gratifying was that the players stayed on and seemed to welcome the presence of the fans, and they were sort of celebrating together, and it was like and then kind of there was they'd won the league, and so there was the ceremony of all of that. Is that I wonder with the people that were on the pitch on Saturday, they've taken their little flares and they've got ready to they've put them in a box next to their sandwiches and their flask of Kia, and they've known all game that they were going to get on the pitch, and then they managed to make it past the stewards, and then they're on the pitch. But what happens then? What's the payoff for it? What's the orgasm of the situation? Because I imagine that's why it took them 2 hours to get off the pitch, because once they were on there, they were just like, right, what do we do now then?
I'm making the most of this.
What happens
Can
next?
I offer my experience as a I'm going to admit this now that I have been a pitch invader in the past.
Not on Saturday. Are you going to
No.
You had the flare, didn't you?
Yeah, I was running around with 2 flares on either hand, just going mental. But I went on when we made it to Wembley last year.
Yeah.
I think that's quite legit. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I remember my thought process of it, of where it was like, oh, we've made it to Wembley. What do people do when their team makes it to Wembley? And I went, all right, yeah, quite a lot of people seem to be going onto the pitch now. I should follow them onto the pitch because I've never done that before, and this seems like an apropos moment. And then you get onto the pitch, and it's like, what do you do? I sort of walked around for a bit, took a few pictures, and you sort of get awkwardly close to the players, and then you kind of realise they're like 19 years old.
Yeah, it's very unusual. The real way to get on the pitch, the best moment of on the pitch this season was Neil Allison nonchalantly walking around for his kick it for a ticket.
Oh, last season, but yes.
Was that last season, was it?
It was a year ago now.
Bloody
yeah,
hell,
I was
time
nonchalant,
flies.
wasn't I? Maybe 2 so.
Oh, it was delish. You got in there you wore shoes in the end, didn't you?
No, I was wearing pumps, but it was a bad idea because it was a wet day. And I nearly fell over every time I kicked the ball, which I regret now. I also regret holding my phone in one hand at the other time because you need balance.
Yeah.
All these things went against me. But yeah, that's what you need to do when you go on the pitch. Just don't give a fuck. Just wander around.
Yeah. Anything more on the game?
One more thing. Can I just drop in? Just because the other thing that's happened since that match is I've noticed a lot of people trying to kind of justify just how much we were trying to win it with quite select highlights of the match, and obviously giving their goalkeeper man of the match as well, which fair play, he made a couple of good saves. But that's almost as bad as people judging us for cheating. It removes all context. I mean, there is a whole match there to judge, and you can't really ignore the fact that for 30 minutes nobody was trying. So, I mean, you can go either way, but to kind of set out that, this is how much we were trying to win the match, and that's no different to kind of going the other way and saying, no, they weren't trying at all. It basically was a match of a mixed bag of some intent and then quite a lot of not really caring.
You're right, Neil. I've seen some really ropey thinking, some really piss poor logic from people trying to sort of explain away any questions about that match. So a common argument that I've seen, and I've seen it directed at a few Barnet fans, is, well, you had 45 games before that one to get enough points to stay up. And it's like, yeah, but it's a 46-game season. So we're entitled, so we're entitled to expect that we could get some points in the final game, and we're entitled to expect that the other final games are played fairly. Doesn't matter whether we've been shit or not up till now. We've still got a chance of staying up. So we would like to make sure that everything that's going on is above board.
And also, I've not seen any Mansfield fans going mental at Morecambe for not trying to beat us. I mean, what they're playing at,
good point, yeah.
They could at least put a fight up, couldn't they? I know ultimately it didn't matter, but still.
I think that was part of the deflation of the day as well, was that we got in there and then straight away it was like, Mansfield are losing already, and Wickham are losing already, and Lincoln are losing already. Easy. So you were like, oh right, so it really doesn't. We sort of knew we were going to be in the playoffs anyway, but now it's definite, and now we've got to sit through 80 minutes of this.
Yeah, this is it. It's the removal of some sort of drama to which I think you feel you're entitled at that point.
Yeah.
Can I say there was one really good moment in the match, and it was when Squeaky Mark Robbins got hit quite hard on the back by the ball while he was bollocking someone.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like that sort of thing, when a teacher was getting really angry at school and then they sort of stumbled over their words or something like that, and it completely undermines the authority of the bollocking. I was sitting really near him, so I could see his face, and it was absolutely contorted with rage. And then the ball hit him, obviously quite hard in the back, and he just stopped, completely motionless for about 2 seconds, and then carried on dishing out his bollocking. But the impact of it was completely negated by the fact that he'd just been hit with a ball and failed to acknowledge it. That was superb. I loved that.
There's no coming back from that, is there? No. Even Roy Keane would struggle to come back from that win, I think.
Other things in the game that I wouldn't mind bringing up, and Dom, I'm sure this is something that you'll be all over. Kevin Ellison. Have you ever seen a footballer look less like a footballer than that in your entire life? He was born in 1979.
And he put in quite a mobile, committed performance. He was all over the place. It was quite impressive, really. Even sort of the moments of cynicism for him. There's one point where he tried to take a throw in a full 20 yards away from where the ball went out. It's just a blatant attempt of time wasting, and because of the situation of the game, everyone just found it hilarious. It was just one of those things where if there had been anything right on the game, he would have been absolute pantomime villain there, and everyone would have been hurling abuse at him. But because the draw sorted both sides, and both teams ended up in the game getting what they wanted from it, he became sort of a bit of a hero. He handed the ball to a young Coventry City fan during the pitch invasion. He was interacting with the fans on Twitter. But it's just that thin line between heroism and absolute shithousery.
He did. Another thing about the game that involved him was he had their shot that Burge tipped round the post that they gave a goal kick for that nobody gave a shit about complaining about.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue this one.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Sorry, Neil. Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen the referee try to stamp out the time wasting in that game.
Yellow cards all over the place.
I mean, does that technically count as time wasting if it's neither team's time that is being wasted?
I wonder if
Pointing at the fans, like, look,
Yes.
they're
Only
bothered.
only the 15,000 people assembled.
I would have really liked it to have been the first game on record where open play was stopped to book a player for time wasting. Yeah. I couldn't, like you say, he was actually quite effective, Ellison, wasn't he? But I just spent, in a second half of very little to look at, I just couldn't take my eyes off him. I just thought, this is, if League Two was embodied in one man, it is undoubtedly you. Just because you're willing to run up and down a bit, that's fine. You can still play in League Two, don't worry about it.
Did anybody notice that Tom Bayliss touched the ball about 13 times and got man of the match? Because actually, whenever he did catch the ball, he basically ran with it and tried to score like a wonder goal, and that was enough in that match. But he went the first 20 minutes without touching it at all. Yeah. And then later on, he got a few touches of the ball, and then later on, he got knackered. But then when the ball came to him in that proper playground sort of style where, you know, it's near the end of lunch and you're just wandering around until the ball gets to you, and then you suddenly go on the rampage. And then he almost scored a fantastic goal. But it was another weird moment in that match where he really didn't touch it very much at all. And yet he's walking away with a man of the match prize.
You've jogged my memory on something. I've not watched the highlights back. Can I ask the question, did we deserve at least one penalty? Has anyone watched the moments back?
When he was bundled over?
Yeah,
or
so
not?
in the first half, there's
half,
where he, and we were right close to it. My initial instinct, in fact, for both of them, I think the second one, Johnson Clark Harris, was pulled down. I can't remember the circumstances now, though. It might have been helpful for me to have watched the highlights, but never mind. But I hadn't got 10 seconds of my life to spare. The first one looked cast iron to me because it was classic Bayliss, weren't it? Where it was Nelson Muntz just running forward with his hand out, just bashing players out of the way, unable to stop him. I don't think I've seen him dive yet, and I think if he fell down, it's because he was kicked down.
Yeah.
Although, you know, like if someone has gone over a bit easily, after he did that, I saw Doyle standing over him saying, if you try and score a goal, I'm going to fucking break your legs.
That would have been absolutely perfect if we'd have been given a penalty and we'd have just gone, nah, don't worry about it.
Doyle almost scored, didn't he?
You up?
Doyle with his long shot.
It was a great effort.
Yeah.
Trying. That made the highlights.
That would have been amazing, wouldn't it, if we'd have won that game with a Doyle screamer? I would have used the opportunity to completely reroute all of the Player of the Season awards at that point from McNulty to him.
It was a toss of the coin, wasn't it? You just knew it was either going to be McNulty or some sort of Doyle-a-thon was going to happen where he just won all the votes. But he only got one in the end, didn't he?
Apparently he took it by one vote from McNulty from the, was it Warwick and Leamington Supporters Club?
Oh yeah, that was it.
It's been, we keep saying it, don't we? It's been brilliant having Doyle back. Right, shall we do some Notts County preview and then we'll throw in some questions and whatever else I forgot. Right, Dom, Notts County. How long, we only played them, 6 weeks ago or so?
Yeah, start of April. So quite a lot of this could have been copy and pasted from the last one I did, but because of the type of person I am, that I went around and basically retyped work that I've already done that I could have avoided. But here we go.
Yeah. let's have it. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember, Notts County started this season absolutely incredibly, based around sort of a really solid system of sort of 4-4-2, two defensive midfielders, Amiobi instead up front, a bit of flair on the wings from George Grant and Lewis Alessandra, and just based on hard work and self-belief, quite a lot of late goals in games to get them right near the top of the table. And then in January, they lost a key player in Ryan Yates, who Nottingham Forest recalled, who was their defensive midfielder. They sent him on loan to Scunthorpe, who he's come in and done pretty well for. But Kevin Nolan just didn't sign a direct replacement. He signed Noor Hussein, who's a really good passer of the ball, but is not a positionally disciplined defensive midfielder. And they signed Liam Noble, who's a really reckless sort of box-to-box player who, in the game that we played against them last month, nearly got sent off because he couldn't control himself. But they sort of used that game, that win against us, to build a little bit of a springboard, help him recover a bit of composure to get him into the playoffs, and very nearly disrupting Wickham for automatic promotion until they lost 2-1 mysteriously to Grimsby.
Yeah, I mean, imagine losing mysteriously to a team that embedded at the bottom of the table. We know about the players that you've talked about, so I think everybody knows Stead and Amiobi, and George Grant obviously has been their kind of, well, I would say his star player. You might correct me. I wonder if there's anybody else that you've not mentioned so far that would be worth us looking out for.
Yeah, so George Grant was excellent sort of during the period sort of between the start of the season and sort of towards January. He hasn't been on quite the same form since then, but he's still a very good player. He got an assist against us at their place. At the moment, Jonathan Fort's come into the team, I think ahead of John Stead. Jonathan Fort's he's a quick striker, so he gives them something different up front. I'm also going to mention Richard Duffy in defence, only because it's going to be a really interesting contest between him and Johnson Clark-Harris, because they both absolutely love going down for soft free kicks. So it's going to be a really interesting contest to see just how much contact there's going to be between the two of them, and who's going to win the most free kicks. I hope there's sort of a special betting market on that.
And the big question, who do you think will go through?
Yeah, so I cast my mind back in games like this to, well, the Crew JPC game, which was the last two-legged game we had, and we kind of didn't realise there was two legs, so imploded after we conceded one goal. Also, recent big games haven't gone well for us. There's that Notts County game that we played last month. It's a game against Lincoln, where basically we weren't able to control our emotions after either conceding a goal or scoring, as we did against Notts County. So I think I have a big worry here that we currently don't have the self-belief to come out in a big game and believe we can win it. Whereas earlier in the season, when the trope about us was that, we don't show up against the weaker sides, but against the bigger teams in the division, we save our best performances. It's kind of flipped on its head quite recently, and I think there's some mental scars there. So, especially with the first leg being at the Ricóh Arena, where there should be quite a big crowd there. I don't know quite what level it's going to be, whether it's going to be the same level as the Morecambe game or even more than that, but it's going to be a tense atmosphere there for the players to cope with. And while Notts County are the worst away side out of the four playoff teams, so I imagine they'll be looking to keep things tight there. I think it's just about how we manage that occasion, and me being an eternal pessimist, I don't think we're going to cope with it, and I think we could lose this game to the extent that the second leg won't matter that much.
Bloody hell.
How would you set up? How would you set us up?
I think, given that Notts County have slow players at the back, they don't have players so great on the ball. As I mentioned, they've got Richard Duffy, who seems to prefer trying to win a free kick than just simply kicking the ball out of play. So you just think, if you really set about them and push them and try and force those errors, that's going to be where you find joy. They'll obviously play through Amiobi a lot. So again, they're about getting the ball forward quickly. And if we can stop them at source, that's going to be the best strategy, both in an attacking and a defensive sense. So I think certainly for the first 20, 30 minutes, just get at them, get our players closing them down. I wonder whether in that instance it's better off playing Johnson Clark-Harris because he's a more mobile player who can help close down teams, rather than Maxime Biamou, who is a great player, but he's much less mobile than Clark-Harris and maybe doesn't quite fit into a pressing game. So that would be my approach, and try and really thrive off that big game atmosphere. If we score early in this game, that could lift the roof off, and you think, well, maybe that really puts the pressure on Notts County, and then that leads to a bit of the Watergates opening. It leads to a lot
floodgates.
of floodgates opening. That's the word.
Neil, what do you think?
I think that this season we have been treated to pretty much every single type of Coventry City performance you can think of. I don't
a smorgasbord of performances.
Indeed, yeah. I don't trust this team whatsoever. But by the very same measure, I also think that they are capable of performing very, very well. And this can happen like within portions of games as well. So even that first half against Lincoln, that was a really... I thought we conceded a couple, but we played well. We scored a couple of good goals. We contributed to a really fun match of football. And even in the last sort of 6 weeks, we've been up and down. Sometimes we perform, sometimes we don't perform. And I can't predict how or what side's going to turn up. But what at least I'm confident in is that we are capable of beating Notts County if the players like McNulty play as we expect them to play. If someone like, Bayliss has one of his wonder games, absolutely, we can do it. The other issue I've got is still not knowing what our best team is. I can guess what Robbins might do, which will be stick to something very similar to the Morecambe game, but I don't know. I don't think he really knows. So yeah, I'm not at all sort of downbeat about it. I think it's a great opportunity. I think what we need to do though is learn, because we've been in a similar sort of situation before, and although it doesn't involve any of these players, the Crew game at home where we essentially punched ourselves out and went all out in that first leg unnecessarily, lost all sort of sense of what mattered and all sense of the fact that it was 100 and I can't do maths, 180-minute game.
Yeah.
And we kind of, we threw it away desperately trying to get back into the game. Whereas if we do concede on Saturday, let's not go mental about it. Let's realise that we've got a lot of time still to pull it back. So I'm just looking forward to it. I think, we don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like, we've got players who can pull out the bag if they need to.
Ed, Biamou or Johnson Clark-Harris?
I would go with Johnson Clark-Harris for those reasons of, I think, the mobility, the energy, that kind of thing. But I am with Dom on this. I'm pretty pessimistic about the confidence issue. I mean, not to the extent whereby I think they'll lose the first leg so badly that Coventry City will be consigned to the dustbin of history and that kind of thing. But I think if you look, for example, at that last half hour, in fact, the whole game against Morecambe, for example, is that the behaviour? Is that the action of a team that is confident in itself, that is confident in its ability to go out and beat people? It really didn't look like that to me, and I've got a lot of reservations about the Lincoln game. I think we played when they allowed us to play. I think in the second half, when they decided they'd had enough, we didn't really lay a glove on them. So I could see the confidence thing being a really big issue, and I'm not optimistic about Saturday.
I just think Neil makes a really salient point, though, is that whilst you're absolutely right about that, in the previous game we won 6-1. It really is. I mean, it's mad that we haven't got a clue who Robbins could start or play. I half expect Ponticelli to start, just because why the fuck not?
Right back.
Yeah, but also is that not only do I not know who the starting 11 is going to be, but that you really have no sense of which team will turn up. On a more positive note, away from the outcome of that game, something else I've been reminded of. Has anyone fallen a little bit in love with Tom Davies?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Paul won't allow this, but I repeated it over and over again. I think those are some of the silkiest shins in all of lower league football. I'm talking about significant numbers of floated 60-yard passes that came at least within 10, 15 yards of their intended recipient, and headers all day. I had previously been quite pro McDonald and Willis, but I've got to tell you now, I am absolutely team Tom Davies. I think he absolutely, especially against Notts County, he has to start. You've got to think that his entire life was building up for him to play against Notts County in the semi-final of the League Two playoffs, haven't you?
Definitely. And watch that guy take a free kick in training. That doesn't matter. He's really good at them.
I'm also a big fan of a footballer with a degree.
Has he got a degree?
Yeah.
I think he's got I think he's got a degree.
Yeah. Is it from Manchester or somewhere?
Is it really?
Oh, a red brick.
Yeah.
Ed, you snob. You were like, oh, I assume Thames Valley or some other ex-poly.
I heard it was Russell Group. God, I imagine he has an absolutely miserable time as a professional footballer.
Well, I swear, like, when I've heard interviews with the players, they say, like, Tom Davies is up there with the banter. It's Northumbria University.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that more befitting of what you expect of a professional footballer's university?
Yeah.
I've relaxed. I don't feel threatened anymore.
Yeah, if the footballers have got the footballing talent and the academia, what's left for you, Ed? Yeah, Tom Davies. On a bit more of a serious note, was anybody surprised at how quickly consigned? Have we all said consigned to the dustbin? What's going on there? How quickly booted out Rob McDonald has been over the last few weeks?
I think it's a bit much, if I'm being honest. I think it's over the top as well. I saw like a bunch of stats being thrown around, kind of sort of advocating what Tom Davies has done, but also you being used against Rod McDonald to kind of say that he's not been playing well. But I think he had a bad game. Who was against? Lincoln, was it?
Yeah.
That was the one. But this guy's been really good for the majority of the season. I think it's really kind of short-termist to kind of do a Vincenti on him and just kind of sack him off as not worthy of the team anymore. I think there's a difference between having a bad game and having a bad season. And that guy, I think I'm going to say, I think he's been our best defender all season.
Yeah, I would completely agree, yeah. I think he's one of the few players that we've got that I think in League One, I'd be happy to let him have a stab at League One. I don't think you'd need like an immediate replacement for him. I think you could have a go with him and Willis. I'm not sure it'd be amazing, but it's not a priority area to cover, is it? But then saying that, I guess horses for courses, Tom Davies does make absolute sense for Saturday, doesn't he?
Rod McDonald was one of the players, wasn't it, who Robbins singled out individually as having basically abjectly failed against Lincoln. And has he been back in the team since that happened?
No.
I don't think he has, no.
So without wishing to start rumours, is there a possibility that he reacted incredibly badly to being dragged in the press and I don't know, maybe sort of damaged Robin's property?
I think you are wishing to start rumours.
Yeah, and this is fabulous tinfoil hattery, and I think would only be really significantly disproven had Robbins not done this with about 12 other players so far this season.
I mean, where's Stuart Bevan? Come on, gone.
Devon Kelly Evans, I believe, still exists and is in a box somewhere waiting to be called back out. He does have these follies, doesn't he, where he's sort of like, no more football for you, and then just sort of casts players aside.
Vincenti exists only as a notion nowadays.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we'd still had the emergency loan window, just how many loan players would have been signed after these players would have been cast off?
Get Presley in as head of recruitment.
Yeah.
That rule has gone so wonderfully in our favour, hasn't it? You would think that would cause us significant problems. Yeah.
Only because we're so bad at it before.
Yeah, it's the save you from yourself law.
Yes.
There we go. Tommy Woodrington's gone, I've noticed, and has been replaced already, has he? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything they'd like to say about that while I pull up my list of listener questions?
Well, I just wonder if that's normal life happening and he just wanted another job that was a little bit better for him. You know?
You can imagine that, can't you? And the guy
there's always conspiracies about stuff, but maybe, because it's not that, it's just, it's just a job at the end of the day, isn't it? Maybe he saw another job a little bit closer to what he maybe potentially calls home. I don't know.
And I did read about the guy that we've got, but he does look like he's a little bit out of our league.
Oh.
He's come from somewhere really quite good. And I think the difference is that I think he'd maybe been possibly a smaller cog in a wheel and has moved up to head of recruitment, which at COV is all of recruitment, I suppose, isn't it? So perhaps he's a guy who fancies a challenge. But it kind of hope, who knows. But of all the things, and I think Paul disagrees with this, but I think possibly a little bit unfairly, I think recruitment on the whole has been very, very good this year comparative to other seasons, hasn't it?
Yeah, I can't think of too many disappointments. I mean, you could potentially question Vincenti, but
I don't mind Vincenti.
Even from a squad point of view, I think we're reasonably well covered, aren't we?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's go for some listener questions then. I'm gonna throw these round to everyone until it feels like we're running out of time. If you don't like the questions, just say, and I'll move on. Questions from Dan Gage. Hi Dan, which was your favourite McNulty goal this season? Mine was his first versus Wickham at home. Anybody got any that they'd like to start off with?
That one against Cheltenham, his final hat-trick goal.
Oh,
that'll do me.
A little dig from the left-hand side with his right foot, yeah?
Yeah, that was lovely, yeah.
Who did he score that sort of swivelling volley against?
Oh, his hat-trick goal for
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice.
Dom?
I'm going for the hat-trick one against Cheltenham. Also, because straight after that, I swear he looked me straight in the eye and said, I may well have scored that goal for you. It happened. He celebrated right in front of me, is what I'm saying.
I'm going to cop out ever so slightly and say the second goal against Gillingham. The one which I think is not only my favourite goal of the season, but my favourite goal for a number of seasons, where Bayliss just murders their ponderous central midfielder, and then Doyle just first time plays it out to Johnson Clark-Harris and he rolls it into him just quick. Mm-hmm. I fucking love that goal. Okay, that's all of our favourite McNulty goals. Do feel free to keep yours to yourself, listener. A question from my mate Matt, actually. Paul's going to kill me for bringing this up, but it has to be said. There was a remarkable bit of Paulness, possibly just before, in fact it had to have been just before half-time, where he tied himself up in knots talking about the permutations of possible half-time team talks for the other teams. He was like, if this stays as it is, it's going to be an easy team talk for Mansfield because they're already down and that they know they have to come back big time. Lincoln, exactly the same. And I was like, what happens if we score a goal now? He's just like, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. In fact, if anything, it's going to make their team talk even more like forceful like that. It was really quite something to observe. So thank you, Matt, for reminding me of that. Old Man Groom on Twitter. With Cov Bryan sporting the colours at the World Snooker, when have you randomly spotted a fellow City fan when you least expected it? I'll start off on this one to give you some chance. When I first moved to Manchester, I was in Sainsbury's in Fallowfield, and I saw a chap in one of those delicious yellow retro sort of 89 kits, and sort of casually not whispered, that makes it sound like I've done like a sex thing. I think I just said to him, play up Sky Blues or something as sort of, benign as that. And he looked at me, gone out, and I realised that he must have just been a Manchester hipster who'd picked that up off a off a thing. And what I didn't say to him, and that I sort of wish, I'm glad I didn't really, was, I know you've picked that up from a charity shop, but that shirt's probably worth about £100, dickhead. So either sell it to me for £5, yeah, or respect the history of the club. Real life sightings of Cov fans. Anyone got any?
What, in unexpected places?
Yeah, like the Ricóh, perhaps.
I was okay. I'll begin this anecdote very quickly by saying, I've had more than one girlfriend. Okay. Guy's a legend. We know that. Let's move on. So I was out for lunch at Richmond Park Golf Club with my girlfriend's family, and basically it's quite sort of snotty and exclusive place. And I thought that I would wear my Cov scarf as like a sort of rebellious gesture, right? And
I mean, so, when you're as posh as you, that constitutes rebellion, doesn't it?
That's quite a big. Yeah. That's sort of anarchy, basically.
That's a big FU to the establishment.
Very, very, very much so. And so I was wearing it in the golf club, and my rebellious gesture was completely negated by this bloke coming up to me and saying, "Oh, good scarf, mate. I'm a Coventry City fan as well." And it really took the wind out of my sails, because I just thought, if I'm not even in here being subversive, then I'm just in here, and that's what I am, and then this is what I am.
How did they?
That started off sort of cheerful, and then it became more nihilistic.
Yeah. How did they respond when you chucked your flare on the course? Any more sightings of unexpected Cov fans in real life? Dom, when you were working on an oil rig?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get out enough, obviously, to come across unexpected Coventry City fans. The only thing that came to mind was I was in the co-op this week in Moseley, and I saw someone in a Coventry City shirt, but that is not an anecdote.
Well, still happened, though.
It just happened.
Yeah. But are you three? Am I the only one who's legit from Cov out of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because curiously, Paul's not either, is he? He's Studley,
No.
I believe. Yeah. Yeah. I guess.
I mean, what's the fair catchment area? Is Warwickshire? That's allowed, isn't it? I'm not going to be castigated for.
Oh no!
not
I mean,
being...
it's absolutely fair to be a Cov fan, because I guess Cov's strange, isn't it? That it's quite a big catchment area of places like Kenilworth and whatever that wouldn't be caught dead being Cov. Warwick University had to change its name to a place that it's not in, for example. So, but yeah, it's not a question of whether you're allowed to be a Cov fan or not. All are welcome, obviously.
Yeah.
All aren't welcome.
I was going to say, based on what you were saying earlier, that's not true. Yeah. That's not what you think.
Yeah, open opinion. Obviously, come on board, guys. Real life opinion. Get out of my stadium. But yeah, no, it was more just a case of where have you seen Cov fans in the wild. I'm always surprised at how many I see in Manchester.
Really?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
I've got a really weird memory of it. I was only young, but I think at the new camp, I saw someone wearing a Cov shirt, and I found that fascinating. I was about 10 at the time. I just thought that this guy knows what he's doing. 10 years old, walking around in the new camp with a Cov shirt on.
Yeah,
I was 10 years.
If he's walking around the new camp with a Cov shirt on, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's made a terrible decision.
That's a statement, isn't it? But was that Robert Yarney time? I don't know whether that was...
20 years on, that man turned out to be Pep Guardiola. Okie doke. Paul has not a question so much as a comment. Twitter is all the better for love stories like Ed and Laurie. Laurie, how would you respond to that? Oh dear.
Not on the show this week.
Oh dear. What did I say, Laurie? I asked Ed how he responded to it.
No, you did ask Laurie.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Laurie, if you fancy writing it in on a postcard, you can reveal the answer to that on next week's show. Ed, how do you feel? How do you feel about your burgeoning romance?
Yeah, totally agree. We met each other, bumped into each other for the first time in person IRL at Cov Station on Saturday, and it was a real sort of like I think brief encounter type scenario. Really, it was really nice. I think nice. I mean, I've taken this question quite seriously.
Yeah,
I sense it was supposed to be sort of light-hearted, but no, I think he's a really nice guy.
I pictured that meeting of you two like when Millhouse met Shelbyville Millhouse in that episode. So this is what it's like when doves cry. Any more? Oh, this is a question very specifically for Neil. Neil, are you going to talk about our approach to a two-legged tie? I seem to remember you were rather cross, which is a perfect description of how you might be at any one time, Neil.
Yeah.
I seem to recall you were rather cross about Robin's last two-game tie in Cov. We've sort of done a little bit, haven't we?
I feel like I've covered this ground. Yeah, I think we need to be realistic and not go crazy when, if we concede a goal in that first leg. Even if it would be rubbish to lose that first leg, but losing the first leg 1-0, 2-1, even 2-0 isn't catastrophic. Losing the first leg 3-0 because you're going absolutely mental trying to score a goal to equalise, that's stupid, and that makes it very hard. Those are my thoughts.
And then final one, so I'm going to sort of co-opt a question from Paul, or at least a response from Paul. Who would you most like to see take a penalty in a penalty shootout, and who would you least like to see take one? Has anybody got anyone that they can think of immediately? I would most like to see Tom Davis shin one in top corner. I think that would be fabulous.
I mean, least likely is fun. I think I wouldn't trust Chris Stokes anywhere near a penalty.
We didn't get to talk about Chris Stokes attacking Dynamo in the first half.
Yes.
There were moments where the strikers were actively looking for Stokes as an outball. It was really quite... I felt like they were asking an awful lot of a player who hasn't played a lot recently and isn't an attacking force. And then Johnson Clark-Harris was regularly berating him for not putting in pinpoint crosses.
Be good, be better.
What's he been doing in training that now they're like, where are these? Oh, you can't turn up in a game then. I felt really sorry for him.
There was that one run where I don't know whether it was just because the Morecambe defender was rubbish, but he absolutely skinned the defender and put a ball across the box. And I was just really hoping that would go in, because there's something about seeing Chris Stokes in full flight beat his fullback, which is absolutely glorious to watch. The only other time that comes to memory is during the Gillingham 4-1 game, when we were going towards the top of League One. Where he got an assist, where he absolutely breezed past the player. He's just magnificent to watch when he gets up to his full acceleration.
He's at his absolute best attacking when he doesn't have to stop. Stopping's a problem. If he can cross the ball whilst in absolute full motion, that works for him.
There's some players are really effortless, aren't they? And then some players look like every sinew of their being is being used to even articulate even rudimentary motion. He really puffs and huffs, doesn't he, as he's running? It's this lovely.
Tries ever such a lot.
I am absolutely convinced, despite him never having taken a penalty, that Jordan Shipley could put a ball literally anywhere he wanted.
I trust that man's technique.
Jordan Shipley. Anyone else?
I would like to see, for just shades of Stuart Pearce Euro 96, Doyle.
Yes, absolutely. I love the idea. I love the idea of both Doyle and Johnson Clark-Harris stepping up, missing their penalties, and then turning back to the assembled mass of players on the halfway line and screaming at them.
Yeah,
because we've all seen how Doyle takes penalties. That guy doesn't smash them. He used to take them for us, didn't he? He was a side footer all day long.
Yeah, which is very un-Doyle, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if he's changed his tack.
Yeah, I think
the one player who, just thinking about a penalty shootout, sort of sends me shivers, is Carl Reid taking a penalty.
Oh dear!
I see that he's got that. Yeah, there's just no reliability in his technique in striking a ball. It'll either be like perfectly into the top corner, or he'll fall over, or he'll just smash it out randomly. It's just
Have we seen him take one for us? Did we have like a penalty shootout last year in the Checker trade?
possibly.
I just feel like I've seen him take a penalty for us.
I feel like Reed would take a couple of touches before taking a penalty. Yeah. Any final? Any final thoughts on anything? It's been a long season, hasn't it? Yes, go on, Ed.
Okay, so earlier you conjured the image of the would-be pitch invader with his sandwiches and his flair.
Yeah.
So, based on that, little gift idea for the Christmas market: a hamper for the would-be pitch invader. You've got flares, you've got sandwiches, one item each. What else is going in the pitch invader's hamper?
Well, I think I said Kiora, but I think that's off the market. I think that's off the market. I'm thinking, when I'm thinking sandwiches as well, I'm thinking bread and butter, or possibly Dairy Lee. That's where we're at sandwich wise.
So very rudimentary sandwich.
Yeah, I'm thinking white bread, crusts off, Dairy Lee, no butter.
Okay, no ciabattas, nothing like that.
No. And I'm thinking they've been assembled by someone who's been paid for by the state. And I'm thinking crisps, low grade, ready salted.
Yeah.
Neil, have you got an item that you want to add to the hamper?
Nominate Dom.
Dom.
What, to go into the hamper, or?
Yeah, for the pitch invaders hamper.
I don't know. I was thinking a twirl, but for no reason. Maybe
You like twirls?
Yeah, it's slightly flare shaped, and yeah.
Okay.
Neil, coming to you as our confectionery expert, as our correspondent, how would a twirl go in
flare
that
shape?
hamper?
I would go for a flake above a twirl most days, I would say.
But it's one in each hand.
Okay.
I actually
was
wanted to.
thinking-
Oh, sorry. Go on, Ed.
I was thinking that to cope with the difficulty of not knowing what to do when you get on the pitch that we discussed, I would put in a homemade banner for a really honourable cause that nobody could possibly take issue with me like supporting. And if I found myself not knowing what to do, I could get it out and like put it across the pitch, and people would think, oh, look at that guy selflessly trying to, raise awareness for shelter. Or something
Real
like
dignity behind it.
Yeah.
That reminds me that a little while ago I saw when it was this is a fantastic sentence to push out. I was about to say when that Syria thing was happening, but thank God that's all sorted.
Yeah.
And it was really at the height of it, and there was a lot of German clubs unfurling banners that said refugees welcome on them. And I tentatively made some steps into finding out how much it would cost to create one of those banners and then put it up at Cov. And there was, because I wasn't able to do it immediately for £3, it fell away. But I need to confess at this point that as much as it was about a benevolent sense of wishing to create a sense of togetherness in the world, I was largely motivated by how pissed off a lot of Cov fans would be by it.
Yeah.
I would say it was 49-51 in favour of the good element of it. But there was 49% of me that was thinking this would be good to see a lot of middle-aged white men looking at and going, "That the world's gone mad."
Yeah. What is this?
I had a Fuji's welcome banner during the 90s, but that was a different thing.
Praz presumably was delighted when he turned up at the Ricóh. Yeah, okay. Right, well, it feels like I feel like we should go out at the top. So yeah, let's wrap things up unless anybody's got anything else to add. No, that's fine.
Come on Saturday.
Come on Saturday. Thank you again. The voting's closed for the Football Blogging Awards now. I just really, for the final time, massive thank you for the votes. And then there'll be a big thank you when we win the damn thing, which will be next Thursday. And yeah, seriously, lots and lots of votes, many more than I would have expected, certainly more than listen to the podcast. Then that was really good. Come on Saturday, come on football. And thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dom.
It's good to be on the show, as ever.
Thank you, Neil.
Many thanks.
And thank you, listener. Bye.